following discussion is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first speaking with your doctor.
What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Diabetes Podcast, where we discuss how to take control of your health and gain the freedom to live the life that you deserve. I'm Garrett, and with me is my co-host, Dr. Grady and Dr, who is a board-certified chiropractic internist.
Welcome back, Diabuddies. We are back, and we have a holiday special for you. So we'll be releasing this right before Christmas, and so we wanted to bring you guys something a little bit different and related to the holidays, because that's going to be a big part of everybody's life, or most everybody's life, this coming week. And so we wanted to provide a little bit of content for you related to that. So I just wanted to start things off to ask Garrett. Garrett, what are you doing for the holidays?
Well, one thing I'm not doing is I'm not singing Christmas carols on this episode right now, even though it's Christmas special. So I'm sure everyone will be disappointed, because what good is a Christmas special without singing? But
I know.
But anyways, so yeah, this holiday is a little different, and due to work schedules, a couple other things, my family and I are getting together in January, and so or my closer, immediate family is getting together in January, and so I have some family near me here that I'll spend the day with on the 25th, and then I am on New Year's Eve around that time just going to be keeping it low, so because I'll be flying a few days later, and just got to be kind of keeping myself in respect to everyone else, and then I'll be with family in January. So that's kind of the plan, and I think a lot of people are adapting, but also when I get there, I'm planning on eating a lot of food, because that's what I do when I'm with my family, is I eat all their food, and their grocery bills go up significantly.
Oh, yeah.
So what about you? What are you doing for these holidays?
I am flying down to Arizona to see my parents. They retired, or my dad retired last year, and they moved down at the beginning of this year to Arizona. So I'm going down to visit them, and then my brother will be meeting us there. My brother and his wife will be meeting us there in Arizona. I'm actually going down for the full week of Christmas, and then they'll get there around Christmas Eve, as long as everything goes smooth with the roads and snow and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm excited about that. Arizona should be nice. It's in the Phoenix area, so it'll be warm.
Nice.
I'm sure we'll get to go hiking and do some golfing. So it'll be good to be outside and get some sun. Sure.
And this will be the first winter holidays that you're down there, right?
Yep, it will be. So it'll be a little weird, I'm sure. Although with everything that's going on right now, I was talking to somebody today. I'm like, I just don't feel very Christmassy, because it's just like there's not a whole lot of interaction with people, and I don't hardly go to the store anymore, so I don't see Christmas decorations very much. About the only Christmas decorations that I see are when I go out for runs around the neighborhood at night. But yeah, it's just been a weird year.
It really has. But a year of adaptation, and it's just something that we all are going through. And being as diabetics, there's a couple other more challenges, right? This episode isn't going to be about 2020 and COVID and anything like that. But, as diabetics, though, we always have to consider and adapt to our situations. And, this year is no different. But when it comes to the holidays, though, it's something that there can be a lot of chaos and randomness, right? So, even that this is the first time you're in this, a warmer climate back home in past years, what are some interesting situations at the top of your head that you have gotten into as a diabetic around the holidays?
Well, I mean, the holidays, I mean, it's just mass chaos as far as blood sugar goes for the most part. Especially, I mean, like when you're a kid or even just like high school or college, where it's just like you don't have a schedule at all anymore because you don't have
Mhm,
school. So not only is your schedule just chaotic, but then
mhm,
eating is timing is different for your eating, but then also just like what you're eating is usually way different than a normal week. And so, I mean, you get yourself in some pretty interesting situations. And I remember one year, I'm pretty sure I was in college at the time in undergrad, and I mean, we always have, our house was usually the big um, destination for most of the extended family would come, whether it was on Christmas or a lot of times New Year's was the big day. Um, they would come and we'd have a big party and everybody would stay up super late and eat a bunch of crap. And I remember one day we were staying up. This was pretty late in the day or late in the night, and of course at the time I ate like crap. And so on Christmas, I'd just be happy because everybody bring their cookies over to our house,
mhm.
and so I was going hard on the cookies and on the
Mm,
sweets, and so I was just constantly on my pump, giving myself insulin, and I mean it's just like your body becomes just a chemistry set of like sugar and insulin, and you're just like, all right, let's see what happens because
mhm.
you just got so much going on that you don't know what's going to happen. And so I kind of got myself into a situation where I'm like, oh crap, I may have really screwed up. Um, Kind of like the post that I had just posted this week about Hagrid saying, I should not have done that. I should not have done that. And
Yeah.
that there was at it was later in the night, probably around the time that we should have been going to bed, like close to midnight or later.
Mhm.
And I remember starting to feel low, and I had just taken insulin, and I'm like, oh crap. Which is not terribly uncommon to where you feel low and you've just taken insulin. Like, okay, I'll just eat a little bit more. But I had taken quite a bit of insulin, and I was like, oh crap, this might not be too good. But at the same time, I
Mhm.
was like, oh, more cookies. So
Right.
I just started eating more, and I had eaten quite a bit, and I was still feeling like I was going low. And I'm like, oh crap, this is not good. So I just kept eating more and more, and I got to the point where it was just me and my cousins that were up at that point, and they were in the living room, and I was in the kitchen, and you can see like it's open area, so you can see everything. Um, and I just like sit at the kitchen table, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And it's just like one of those points where it's like, all right, what's gonna win first? Is it the insulin that's gonna hit first, or is the sugar finally gonna kick in and save me?
Oh
And because
wow.
I'm like, at this point, I have enough sugar or carbohydrates in my system. It should save me from most anything. And I'm like, all right, just wait it out. Have those two battle it out.
Mhm.
And fortunately, the sugar won, and I was fine. But there was a moment there where I'm like, man, I don't know, man. Am I gonna make it or not? And so I was just kind of like sitting at the table, just like with my head down, just focusing, like, all right, just push through. You can make it.
And I'm sure that time felt like forever.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, and then what amazes me too is that, to put almost things in perspective, is you're somebody. I mean, this sounds like a time when you weren't super dialed in, but
Yeah.
you still have the personality of somebody who's dialed in and very wants to do better. Has a good intention and all the effort in the world to control your diabetes. But yet, even with that mindset and you know uh, personality, you're still in these moments, and it's
Mhm.
it's super easy to get caught in situations like that. And then you kind of save yourself as you're dipping, low, and you start to go back up, but then you probably were high all night then.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was like a really bad yo-yo. And it's kind of funny, like at the time, and this is funny to say, but I was dialed in with my diabetes, but I was not dialed in with my health, which then makes it really hard to control the diabetes. So, I mean,
Mm.
now matching both of them together, being dialed in with my health and my diabetes just makes it way easier to control everything. And because like my A1Cs were always pretty good, um, because I had pretty good control considering the fact that I didn't eat the greatest. Um, but I mean, when you add the added chaos that the holidays bring and having that much cookies, and then those cookies have fat in them because they are cooked with butter and all that stuff. I mean, there's just it's almost too much to compute for at least for my brain, and I
Mm-hmm.
seem to do pretty good regardless. But that's just too much chaos for me to try and sift through and get a correct answer.
What a profound statement, is that you said there. I was in control of my diabetes, but I was not in control of my health, which made my diabetes even harder. You know, wow. Just kind of elaborate on what that chaos means a little bit more.
Yeah, so like as far as controlling my blood sugar, I was pretty good at trying to calculate how much I would need. I didn't really know or have a great concept about protein and fats necessarily, but I was pretty good about staying on top of calculating my carbohydrates. And if I miscalculated for whatever reason, I was good about checking my blood sugar. So that way, if I was going high, I would correct for it. So I'd always, for the most part, try and keep it in the normal ranges that I keep it in now. It was just a lot harder because one, I didn't necessarily understand the concepts of fat and protein and how they affect things. But at the same time, just the things that I was eating made it way harder because they mix the two. And like we said many times on this podcast, when you mix high sugar or higher carbohydrates and high fat together, those two are a bad combo. Not only for your health, but then also trying to regulate your blood sugar. So by eating those junk food and that bad combination of high carb and high fat, it makes it a heck of a lot harder to control your blood sugar, or at least it was for me. Even though technically, looking or asking my endo, I was successful or I was really good at controlling my blood sugar, but man, I had to work really hard at it. And I still check my blood sugar a lot, but I had to check my blood sugar a lot back then because, there was just so much chaos in regards to what I was eating. Whereas now it's much more dialed in, what I'm eating, how much I'm eating. And it definitely makes it a lot easier because those things are dialed in.
Mm. That made me think of an analogy of you dialing these things in now compared to then, and reflecting back on that statement. It's like when you're talking about the aspect of controlling your diabetes, it's short term, in
Mm-hmm.
reality, because insulin's, half life is 3 to 5 minutes. It's most insulin is fast acting that people take that type ones make. And this is obviously more zoned in on type ones because type two is all lifestyle. Well, asterisk on that, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But, short term is diabetes management. Long term is health management,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the comparison could be then to a computer, which I think a lot of people would, most people understand computers enough to say the difference between hardware and software. It's like working on your health is upgrading your hardware of your computer and how things work, while software would be the diabetes aspect of it. And here's the thing though, and relates back to the holidays, is that when you listen to people, whether it be us or any other health podcast or any other YouTube or whatever it is, or just even other doctors and consultants, and talking about long-term health, it's easy to maybe feel down about your current state of hardware, and it takes time to change that, which, that's why we talk the way we do, all those things. But then when you're going to the holidays, maybe your hardware is not the best. You're still able to use the software in a way that can be adaptable. Let's say you're trying to play a really advanced game on a computer, but it's an old computer. Well, you can change the settings of your software and to maybe downplay it enough where it works in a synergistic manner,
Mm,
and you can change what you're doing right now to go in parallel to your current health ability. And why I bring that up is because if, let's say, you're going to the holidays now and you're like, I haven't been working out, I haven't been eating the right foods, I'm still struggling to change my mindset, all these things, you don't have to then go into the holidays beating yourself up because your health isn't taken care of. It's making diabetes harder. Like, you can realize that you can work on that right now, but there are things you can do to still manage it in the short term to still be able to survive the holidays and do well, but then continuing to move forward and continue to get your life back on track too.
mm-hmm. Yeah, the holidays and even just like normal health habits, um, there's a lot that goes into it. And by looking at your blood sugar, I've always said this about me as a diabetic, it gives me a great window into my health. And
Mm-hmm.
so even, I don't think I fully understood that phrase of, you know, being a big window into my health necessarily consciously, but subconsciously, it's always been something like, oh, this this is happening with my blood sugar. Like, hey, I've been low all day. Something good must be happening if my blood or if my body doesn't need as much insulin as what I'm getting. Or hey, my blood sugar has been high all day. What's going on that's impacting this? Am I super stressed? Or is it something that I ate yesterday that's been goofing me up all day today? And by just simply looking at that, making it very simple of, you know, how is my blood sugar, or how is my body being impacted by the decisions that I'm making today, or that I made yesterday, or even through the week. How is it being impacted, and how is it impacting my ability to control things, and the ease at which I am controlling things, I think is a good, just simple way of looking at it, and not necessarily complicating it too much. Because if things are getting easier for you, whether that's blood sugar wise or whatever symptom or thing that you're focusing on, if things are getting easier, then you should probably keep doing those things that are making it easier for you.
Mm, agreed. Yeah. So, with that being said, uh, because I guess I'm trying to take it and think about, okay, well, how how do you still manage it, going into the holidays? How do you navigate those things? To somebody, Grady, someone come up to you and say, hey, I notice I'm giving myself a lot more insulin, these days. Or the type 2 diabetic and say, I've been really lethargic, even more so. I'm still on the same dose of metformin or whatever, but in my current strategies, but I'm just more tired. How can I go into the holidays and enjoy myself, but still try to work on my health?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll kind of take it just from, personal experience is always, I think, the best way to convey things, at least for me,
Yeah.
because that's where I've learned the most.
Mm-hmm.
And through my learning process from transitioning into that story that I just told about eating like crap and then having to pay those consequences to where I am now, there's a bit of a process there. So first, it's making that decision to make healthier decisions, and whatever reason that you need to have to keep you accountable, that's the thing that you need to focus on. So for me, that was my blood sugar. I started noticing that when I started eating healthier, my blood sugar was easier to control and allowed me to offload a lot of the stress that comes with trying to manage my blood sugar. And I could use that now open space in my mind to do other things and accomplish other things. And so I focused always on what's it doing to my blood sugar. Other people may focus on, all right, what's it doing to my energy levels and my productivity levels, or what is it doing to my gut symptoms, or whatever it is. That's something that I would always hold on to when I came to tough decisions when it comes to food, because we all come to those tough decisions. It doesn't start with grandma, reaching out and saying, "Hey, have one of my cookies." It starts way before that, because the cookies are there. She doesn't have to come over and offer them to you. You know they're there, and you're already thinking about, all right, what am I going to decide? Am I going to break down and have one of those, or am I going to try and make a better decision and not have one of those?
A week in advance, she's already baking for you.
Exactly. And so I would always focus on essentially my why. Why am I living this way, and why do I want to keep living this way? And so when I would see that food, or somebody would ask me if I wanted that food that I know is probably not going to have a positive effect on me, and it's going to impact my blood sugar, impact my stress levels, impact a big part of my mind that wants to just relax and enjoy the moment. Because when my blood sugar is chaotic, I'm not there enjoying the moment. I'm thinking about what my blood sugar is, what's going to happen, how much insulin I'm going to need to take, when I'm going to need to take it, among a billion other things surrounding that blood sugar. So I want to, and this is for me, I want to have less stress in that moment, so that way I can enjoy that moment with my family. And so that's kind of my why, and so I stick to that. When I see that food, I think about my why am I not going to have that? um, and that's part of the um, big strategy for me, as far as refraining from a lot of those bad foods. But the other end of things, coming at it from a different angle, is you still want to, I know a lot of people still want to enjoy the holidays. And so for them, that is indulging in some sort of food that they don't regularly eat or make, that isn't necessarily the greatest for them. And it doesn't have to be super terrible, but it's something it may throw things off a little bit. So my way of combating that is just trying to find different recipes that either, one, try and mimic that food. Like if it's a chocolate chip cookie, then maybe trying to find a recipe that has healthier or better ingredients in it, that's not going to impact your blood sugar as much, or not impact your gut as much, or whatever it is that you're trying to stay on course with. Trying to find ingredients that are congruent with what you're eating now, or at least as close as you can to that, so that way it's not going to impact your health or your blood sugar as much. And or maybe just trying to find other things that crave your sweet tooth, or crave whatever it is. So like, maybe you can't find a good recipe for some sort of cake or pie that's the exact equivalent of it. Well, maybe try to figure out a whole new recipe that is also really good, but it isn't necessarily the same one. So maybe starting new traditions of what you're making. And that can sometimes be hard, because we hold on to things. Nostalgia is a big thing for people. But change is also good. Change is hard, but change can also be good.
Yeah. So what if you don't? What if you're the family member that shows up and because you're a kid, or you're just the cousin or uncle or aunt, or that doesn't bring anything? That you don't cook anything. You contribute zero to that day. I think in a situation like that, then you can still look up other recipes, but then that just becomes a family dynamic of like, hey, I would appreciate it if maybe we had like one alternative, or probably the more self-reliant would be to then, if you're not bringing something, to bring that and then share it. Maybe it tastes really good and you can get other people to eat that new tradition or whatever.
Yep,
and,
exactly.
and you can then use it as an opportunity to engage in family or friends or loved ones or whatever your traditions might be in a way that you haven't before, and might get you to come out of your shell a little bit more and a little bit differently, because there's nothing more taking ownership of your health. There's nothing more powerful than starting to choose and make the right decisions for what you eat, and that includes what you bake or make or cook or whatever. And when you start controlling that aspect, easy comparison, make your own food compared to fast food. Like there's nothing more empowering than taking control in that way, and not control as in I have to have control, I am alpha male female, whatever,
Yeah.
but like dominant personality, but as taking control of empowerment and saying, this is just what I'm contributing, and I'm doing this for me, and I hope you guys like this and enjoy this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that would be my suggestion, is kind of be the positive light in the situation. So whether that's like having the conversation ahead of time and saying, hey, what are you planning on making? Like asking your family members or whoever's in charge of making the food or planning what food is there, asking them, what do you plan on having there? And if it's, and if there's really nothing, or you can't figure out a way to navigate what they plan on having, then maybe asking, okay, could we, if you're going to be making this, can you leave out the barbecue sauce? Because I know the barbecue sauce has maybe a lot of sugar in it, or it has gluten in it, or whatever the case may be. Can you leave out the barbecue sauce for, this portion? And so that way I can have that. And if that's too much to ask, or you're too shy or not willing enough to ask that, then just say, hey, do you mind if I bring some stuff along? Whether that's just for yourself, if you're coming from that mindset, or if it's, hey, do you mind if I bring something else for the group? And you just make enough that hey, at least I'll have something there that I can have, and then also share it with everybody else, and have a positive impact on everybody else, because they're going to be eating something that'll be healthier. So I kind of like coming at it from the mindset of, hey, I'm going to bring this healthy stuff here, so that way I can at least, one, I'll have stuff to eat there in case I can't eat anything else. And at the same time, I will hopefully have a positive influence on other people, because they'll be, if they eat this, then they'll be eating less of, bad stuff.
What's a holiday food item or activity, most likely food, or activity, I'll open up that to you, Grady, that you shouldn't eat or do, but you do it anyways? Is there anything that fits in that category for you in these past years?
I mean, in these
Please say
past
something.
in these past couple of years, it wouldn't be like my standards. It would probably be something I shouldn't eat. Most people's standards are like, oh, that doesn't count. But for me, it does.
You use Caesar dressing instead of vinaigrette. That's your holiday special.
Even I don't even go that far. But so like, like party nuts is something, or like even just like mixed nuts that are from planters or whatever, has been something that I've indulged in the past, that I know I'm like, I know this probably isn't the greatest, but it's one of those things that doesn't necessarily impact my blood sugar too much, as long as I don't have the whole container, which sometimes that ends up happening.
Sure. Why are planters nuts in particular something that you splurge on that might impact your blood sugar?
Well, one, they have a lot of seed oils in them, usually, because they have peanut oil and among other things in there, which are inflammatory. And they also, obviously, like we talked about in this podcast, can impact blood sugar in that they're going to delay the spike from the carbs that are in those nuts. And so it can be kind of hard to then time your insulin and take the correct amount. So it just makes it a lot harder. And at the same time, with gut health, they are a little bit harder to break down, and therefore they can irritate the gut a little bit. I don't necessarily have a ton of gut symptoms from them. I know my stools change, and not for the better. So that does impact my gut health if I eat a lot of them, or even I feel like I'm of the mindset, if it changes it with a lot, it probably changes it to some degree with a little bit. So that's why I try to stay away from them totally. But sometimes I'm a salt hound, so that's what gets me with the nuts is the salt. So sometimes they get me, but lately, the last few years, I've been able to stay away from them. But even this year, even like on Thanksgiving, my mom made some healthier sweets for me, which were all, the ingredients were all Grady approved ingredients, but they were higher in carbohydrates, and I was trying to stay, I have been lately really, really, really low carb, and so that was um, a different diet, we'll say, macros wise, than I was normally doing. And so at the time, I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't do this just because of what I'm trying to do with my diet right now. But at the same time, they were all good ingredients. I'm like, there's really not a huge reason why I shouldn't indulge in this, other than the fact that it is a little bit higher carb. Um, but and when I say a little bit higher carb, there wasn't that much carbs in them. But it did make me feel a little guilty.
Wow. Wow. What a rebel.
I
Eating
know.
too many planter mixed nuts.
Yep.
No, but legitimately though. Okay, so what's your then strategy? Is it pure trying to do willpower, or how do you get around that?
Yeah. So yeah, especially with the planters nuts, I've been really, really good about staying away from or not even planters, like all nuts. Um, been really good about staying away from those things. And so there's a couple strategies that I use for that, because like I said, it's the salt part of the nuts. It's not necessarily the nuts themselves. The salt is the biggest part of it. So what I do is try to find things that are salty that still satisfy that craving. Um, so like my grandma, she makes, I mean, they have a huge garden, and so they can a lot of vegetables. And so they make these dill beans, or hot dill beans, because they have a little cayenne pepper in them.
Nice.
And
Kanye pepper, as I said.
yep. And they're really good, and they're salty, a little spicy. They got a crunch to them, and so that's been a good way for me to stay away from anything that's bad. Um, I can also cook up some vegetables, or even raw vegetables if I need to. I really don't eat a ton of raw vegetables, but I'll cook up some vegetables and just salt the crap out of them if I'm really craving salt, and get my craving satisfied that way. As far as like sweet wise, if there's like sweets there and I'm really craving sweets, but it's only sweets that are like not Gritty approved, then what I'll do is I'll just have some fruit or something sweeter. So like sometimes I'll just have like carrots or sweet bell peppers, and that's enough sweet for me to crave my sweet tooth. Or if that's not enough, have a little bit of fruit, um, and most of the time that's gonna cure it right away for me, anyways.
I will say that some of those strategies are, if anyone listening tries them, you might feel really silly, and I'm sure sometimes you do as well, but you're probably used to it to a
Mm-hmm.
degree as well. So literally the strategy of altering, finding a substitute and eating it, you have the willpower to say, no, I'm not going to do that because I know my why, I know all these things. And instead of watching people eat ice cream, you're eating, raspberries or whatever. Or
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine I would feel silly too. But I have done it. People are eating cake and you're biting into a bell pepper, or something like that. I can imagine, you can feel silly in those situations. However, and then you might feel like people around you might judge you because you're not, food is it's such an interesting part of our lives and culture because it
Mm-hmm.
is traditions. It is almost as impactful as religion in some cases,
Yeah.
right? It is literally ingrained in us, and sharing a meal, and some might be insulted if you're not sharing that meal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not even that pressures you might feel. It's not about that. It's about committing yourself to a better part of your health. And yeah, you might feel silly biting into a bell pepper, but heck, biting into a bell pepper, if anybody hasn't done it, it actually is pretty sweet. Like, if you're
Yeah.
biting into it like an apple, like you
Mm-hmm.
just gotta be careful of the seeds if you hopefully have already taken out that part, maybe cut it in half. But logistics aside, like when the whole rind of the bell pepper is together, like it holds like the sugar, it holds the sugars in it better than if you were cutting up a pepper, and you can taste the sweetness
Oh yeah.
in those. And you'd be surprised or even at carrots, all these other things. If those are your strategies, that what you're trying to replace because you're trying to be lower carb, or whatever you're trying to do, like, or maybe you're trying not to do any meat because you're doing more vegetarian. There are plenty of reasons why to do these things,
Mm-hmm.
but just remember that if they love and care about you, and because you're spending that time around them with the holidays, which I'm sure they do, they'll know, they'll accept it. And if
Mm-hmm.
not, be confident in yourself, knowing that even if they don't understand, this is the right thing to do.
Yep. Yeah. And at the same time, like if you've never done this before at a holiday event with your family or friends, the first time is hard because I mean it was hard for me. It was hard for me to say no and keep saying no and keep saying no, um, to my family members, to my friends. But you have to take that first step, and once you take that first step, people start to understand. Hey, this person's actually taking it pretty seriously. Like they're saying no. So that first time with those people, it's going to be hard because you're going to have to be constantly saying no because they're constantly going to be trying to get you to eat it. And it's not out of like, hey, I'm going to make this person eat this thing. It's just what happens on holidays. People want other people to, you know, as they say, enjoy the holidays. Um, but but for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people in, trying to take their health seriously, you're enjoying the moment because you're not having to worry about whatever health problem that you worry about when you eat bad food. And so um, you're kind of training your family and your friends for the future down the road because that first time, like I said, is really hard. But each time you see them after that, it gets easier and easier and easier. And people understand, like, hey, Grady doesn't eat those things. And so people actually you start having a positive impact on those people because they start to understand that, hey, Grady's not going to eat this food, so I'm probably just not going to make this food, or I'll still make maybe a little bit of this food, but I'll make sure to have something that Grady can have, or um, or maybe like I said, maybe not making that bad food and deciding to make something better, or whatnot. But it's essentially you start to realize you're having a positive effect on people. And I've started to notice that too, with my family. There's a lot less sweets around. People don't eat quite as much sweets. And at the same time, a lot of the food, the main course food that is being made, is a lot healthier as well. It's not always perfect. And there's still some food that's not Grady approved, that happens at our holiday functions. But I would say overall, it's definitely a lot better. And at the same time, my experience is a lot better because there's not a lot of people pressuring me anymore to have food that I shouldn't. And I mean, it becomes kind of a running joke, like, "Hey, Grady, you want some of this?" Or even like, "Oh, I know Grady's not gonna like me having a piece of this cake or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of like you just kind of have to train people to realize, hey, this is how I live my life, and it's not anything against you or your cooking. It's just how I live my life because of how my body is functioning and how I want my body to function.
Do you give your disappointed dad look to your family members?
Oh, 100%.
Even to like your dad or like an uncle or something,
Oh yeah, my dad,
That's
my
awesome.
mom, my grandma, oh everybody, yeah.
So if you can imagine Dwayne the Rock Johnson's people eyebrow move, Grady nails it. And when he's disappointed in you, you feel it. And then he gets to a point when he's done it to you enough where he doesn't even have to raise his eyebrow. You can feel the muscles that would raise his eyebrow quiver a little bit, and you know that he's watching you eat. But it's all in a loving way.
Oh yeah.
That's so funny that you do that to your you the disappointed dad look to your dad. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Uh, you know, for me, and I really have no strategy that we haven't already talked about in this instance, but uh, for me, around the winter holidays, the easily one of the things that I splurge the most on is that just leads to a cascade of other than events in my body and blood sugar is eggnog.
Mm.
Whether it be eggnog and then alcohol or just pure eggnog. Oh my gosh, I freaking love that drink. It's awesome. And so, but that's just the one time a year that I have. And so with that one, I take an approach of I try to not go ham, or I not try to have a lot of it. I try to. I know I'm gonna have it. I know I'm not gonna. There has been maybe 1 or 2 years that out of many that I successfully did not have eggnog. But because I was really more focused on dairy at that point than anything. But I think the goal is then if you know there's something that you're most likely going to eat anyways, do your very best to limit it, and say, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'll feel a little bit bad, but that's okay because I'm here in this moment. And I'm going to have just, for me, 4 ounces. If I have 4 ounces, not even a full cup, that's enough for me to kind of wet my whistle, I guess. Is that, I feel like that's an appropriate term, right? That's an okay
Yep.
term. Okay, I wasn't, anyways. Uh, um, I feel like thinking about it ahead of time and committing and making an agreement to myself ahead of time is a way to not just have literally a gallon of eggnog at once.
Mm-hmm.
But that only works if I've thought about it. Meaning, if I go to a function or event in the past and something like that's there that I didn't think about, I'm like, oh, friggin', this is sweet. And then, I'm not walking in with a disciplined mind regarding that subject.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a little bit harder,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when the kind of the planning and expectations and all those things can, the more you can think ahead about challenges, the better you can have either self-control or limit the damage or whatever have you, or think of alternative strategies before it even happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you also have to understand yourself and know yourself to pick the correct strategy for yourself. Because your
Mm-hmm.
strategy of, oh, I'll just have a little bit, that doesn't work with me at all.
Yeah,
if
sure.
I if the dam breaks even or cracks even just a little bit, man, the whole river's coming through.
I love to see you just going ham on cookies. I would love to see that. Like somehow you slip up, you have one cookie, and then you have like literally 30 cookies. That would
Yep.
be amazing. Not obviously to the listeners, that's not amazing. No one should do that. But Grady is
Yeah.
so strict that it's like watching, somebody do something that they've never done before for the first time.
Yeah.
And then in terms of, let's say, maybe you're at the point that we were talking about earlier where it's literally you can't change your hardware. You don't think you can even change the hardware of your mindset going into it. You don't think you're going to even be able to change uh, your discipline and understanding your why. Maybe you haven't even thought about those things going into these holidays, right? So then, some strategies, if you're insulin dependent, is know that you're going to be giving yourself more insulin. And whether it be changing your basal rates, if you're a pump user, and upping the basal rate around meal times or times when you're not going to be outside, and you can vary it day to day. Now, becomes very technical, like diabetes tweaking or tinkering. But you could do that where you change your basal rates, or you could even change your carb to insulin ratios. Again, if you're insulin dependent, and go at using that as an adjutant to combat higher blood sugars. Or maybe those, I guess, in terms of insulin, those would be the ways I would think about it. If you're only working on your software, what can you do in the present to limit the damage of what's happening? And maybe then you commit to a New Year's resolution, even that best time is now. But maybe you say January 1st is when you do everything. And, then you're really going to work on all that other stuff, the hardware of diabetes. But in the meantime, the software, just go ahead knowing that you're going to live your life, and you're going to try to not be so many highs and lows, and just try to predict it more.
Yeah. I think some of the best advice that I can give, if you plan on um, indulging in things that you know you probably shouldn't, the best advice I can give is probably a couple things here. One of them being, if you're going to have a lot of sweets or a lot of something that is going to impact your blood sugar significantly, then I would, one, try not to graze all day, because if you're grazing, it's a lot harder to know, one, did I take enough insulin? Where am I at with that insulin that I took? Because if you're kind of constantly taking insulin throughout the day, it's really hard to, I mean, the if you have a pump, it tracks your active insulin, but at the same time, there's a little bit of a wiggle room with that, and it's not always the same. And so that can make things harder to control your blood sugar. So I would suggest trying to structure your eating to make sure that, all right, I'm going to eat everything at once, and that's going to be my meal, or that's going to be my indulgence. Boom, done. And then wait at least a few hours before you even snack or eat another meal again. So that way, all right, the insulin has run its course. My blood sugar is this. Either I, calculated correctly and made the right dosage, or I didn't, and I need to adjust that. And then have your next meal or your next indulgence. So that way you can keep it as simple as you can while adding chaos to your dietary lifestyle.
Yeah, that might be the probably easiest strategy to implement out of everything we've talked about, is limit the grazing and kind of take things slower, and that way you can really watch how things respond.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean that you're not gonna not eat that food. It just might mean that you're gonna eat it, an hour from now.
Yeah.
And that most people are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like that's definitely probably thinking about it. And as you were saying that, probably the strategy I've used the most throughout like my very controlled diabetes years, and even not, it's just like, oh, I'm just too crazy right now. Like I just gotta collect everything first before I just add more insulin, eat more, because that strategy applies to non-holidays too. If you're like 185 going into a meal and you've been kind of high all day, but just took insulin and you just started seeing that you're going down, I'm going down 185. Even though I've been like high all day, like I can eat. And this is true, you can. But if you already have a higher hyperglycemic state, it's going to be that much harder to get yourself back down if you consume more food. And even if you get the right amount of insulin, like it's just your body doesn't respond. Or, I mean, in general, bodies don't respond that way in that linear of a method.
Mm-hmm.
So the limiting the grazing, waiting till your insulin that he gave kind of runs its course, all those things is a really, really good strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. The other part of it is, I think, beneficial to both type 1 and type 2 diabetics, or just people worried about their blood sugar, trying to manage their blood sugar, is try and implement some strategies beforehand that's going to increase your insulin sensitivity. So getting good sleep and the right amount of sleep, maybe doing some exercise. So going on a walk before the meal or after the meal to help with your insulin sensitivity, getting that sugar into the cells. Or like I did over Thanksgiving, we went on a hike on Thanksgiving day before we ate. And so my insulin sensitivity was a lot better. So it mitigated any outside the lines that I may have had. And that just kind of comes to mind right now, or those are the two big things that come to mind, is getting good sleep, reducing stress as best you can with whatever strategies that you use to reduce your stress, and then also just exercise. Get some exercise in, whether you like to lift or whether you like to do some sort of cardio, or just simply going for a walk with your family or friends or whatever you're doing. Go for a walk beforehand or maybe after you guys eat your big meal, because that can help with peristalsis and getting things moving too. Um, uh, that would be helpful too, as far as mitigating some of those high carb or sugary foods.
Yeah, that was actually gonna be my very last tip as well. Was move your body and
Mm-hmm.
exercise, no matter what. If you're somebody who works out a lot and then you're traveling, whether it be for 2 days, 1 day, a week, whatever or more, and you don't have access to how you typically work out, plan a walk. You know,
Yeah.
And if you're going into colder states, colder, if you just live in a colder country, but then going to the holidays, going into the new year, going into all these other, I think it was like a total, like on average, 14 holidays around this time of year.
Mm.
Um, Whatever you celebrate, and you're going to be eating and grazing and all these other things, like even if it's cold or even if it's super hot, bring gear, plan to move, plan to walk outside, commit to that. And, that's probably the best thing you can do, even if you are doing all the other strategies, because you should be, doing those things anyways. But
Mm-hmm.
walking will dramatically change so much of your insulin sensitivity, change your digestion, how your brain functions. I'm a very sleep deprived person, but the holidays are probably the one time that I really get the sleep that my body needs, and I say that as my one and only flaw
Yeah.
is my lack of sleep. Um, but Grady laughs because he knows that I'm right. But yeah, then planning on sleeping or allowing yourself to sleep in a little more. Really, you don't need the coffee unless you like the taste. Like all these other little things that. But moving your body is by far and then I know I'm going to be running a lot. I've been lifting a lot of weights in these past few months. I know the week that I'm down south, I'm not going to have those weights, so I'm going to run instead, or I would
Mm-hmm.
walk, or I would even do mobility, yoga, stretch, whatever it might be, body weights, even just push-ups. Not super big fan of sit-ups, but sit-ups, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whatever body things you can do to change your sensitivity. And I think that will end up being, if that's the only strategy you do, and because you haven't in the past given any effort, or you've half-assed or full-assed or whatever you've done going into the holidays, but you do want to make a change and you really haven't, move your body, commit to moving your body, and maybe not to lose weight as the goal, but then just to make diabetes a little bit easier on those days that you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So you got any other tips
Um,
that we haven't talked about?
I think I covered most of what at least my mindset
Mm-hmm.
um, going through the holidays and the family get-togethers and whatnot.
Sure. So let me then summarize, all that we've said, because and a total tip, little segment is that, going into the holidays, whatever you might celebrate, wherever you might travel, even in 2020, COVID era, whatever you end up doing, here are, maybe 8 tips to think about. Number one is remember your why. Why do you want to be healthy? Why do you want to have control of your life and your diabetes? What is it really related to? And if you've never thought about it, this might be a good time of the year to even just think about that question. So
Yeah.
because remember your why will allow you to make the decisions that you want to, right? Number two, think ahead of your obstacles. So what's grandma gonna make before you even get there? Think about what you can typically expect. The more you can foresee in your mind before it happens, the better you can have strategies to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, bring your own recipes and make your own meals and use it as a way to branch out, maybe change traditions or add to your traditions, and really take empowerment of your health and the food you consume, and share something and try something you might never have before. And it can be something fun,
Mm-hmm.
and that could overcome then the obstacle of knowing that the Texas sheet cake that, Uncle Jill, well, maybe Uncle Jill, I don't know, Aunt Jill, always makes is, that making your own food is a way to change things up, and doesn't have to be an aggressive way by any means.
Yeah.
And then I wrote down holiday confidence. I think it made sense earlier in the episode when we were talking about, but I think what I mean by that is just having confidence in understanding what's going on, and that this is just a short time of year, and knowing that it's okay to make decisions, even with the holidays, for your health and your life, and it doesn't have to be offensive to the traditions you already have.
Mm-hmm.
So just be confident in yourself around the holidays. That's probably what I meant. That was just a quick little note. Be confident in who you are going into the holidays, despite maybe pressures and perceived pressures going
Yeah.
into things.
Yeah. So standing strong. Don't let the peer pressure break you down.
Right. And that was like your biggest thing going into when we quickly talked about camping and Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That was like your one big takeaway for Thanksgiving. Um, And then number 5, just already knowing that if you're going to indulge more, if that's going to lead to more insulin, more, and possibly then you can predict and do temporary more basal rates, whether it be long-term or pump users, or as well as bolus rates, editing and temporarily having different ratios. And that can take some pretty fine tweaking, but that is as it is. And then, number 6, attempt or commit to not graze. Probably the biggest and best thing you can do, or one of the biggest and best things you can do, is just like we were just saying, don't be eating all day. Be very, you know, open and honest with yourself and how often you're eating. And then the last 2 that are super, easy to do is enjoy your sleep, enjoy your rest, and get walking, get moving, get exercising in some way, shape, or form.
Yep. That's a great list.
Boom. And we totally came up with that list beforehand. But yeah, so that is our holiday special tips, I suppose. So what's one thing you're looking forward to, whether it be with the holidays, end of the year, or beginning of the new year?
I'm gonna answer that in a few different ways.
Oh,
One, just the holidays. I mean, family is a big part of my life, so I'm really excited just to see the family again. Even though I saw my parents just a while ago for Thanksgiving, I'm excited to see them. And also, I didn't get to see my brother and his wife over Thanksgiving, but I'll get to see them this week, this week. And so I'm excited about that too. And then also being in Arizona, I'm excited for the sunshine. That'll be nice. Warm weather. And then as far as excitement for the new year, I think there's a lot of excitement around what we're doing here with the podcast. I think we're going to be trying to branch out more, get more content out there. And at the same time, we're going to be hopefully getting our website done. That has been a heck of a process. And I mean, I think I told this to somebody the other day. I'm like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, having to try to build their own website.
You're
But
essentially teaching yourself a minor in IT,
exactly.
trying to build the Dive Buddies website.
Yep, through YouTube and videos and random stuff. But yeah, so that should be hopefully coming out, and we're going to be having a store with different T-shirts from some of the sayings that we have. So that be on the lookout for that. And also, I'm going to be doing a review of different pump sites, of the different types of pump sites. And so I'm going to be trying different ones, and I'll give you my honest review on how those performed with what I do. And so that way, maybe you can change your port site and try some different things, because for the longest time, I used the same one. And I didn't even really think, first of all, I didn't even think there was another one for the longest time. And then when I realized there was, I didn't think much of it. I was like, oh, this is just the one I've been using for a long time. And that's the one, they initially gave me. So that's apparently the one I should be using. And so be looking out for that information. But yeah, what are you excited about?
What am I excited about? Yeah, I'm excited to see my family, my immediate family. I haven't seen them. Well, when I see them, it'll be over a year, So I had plenty of FaceTimes and talks and things like that, and taking all the precautions needed to make that happen, which will be just super nice. And as well as, taking that time, taking a week off will be super nice. As
Yeah.
This year 2020, I've been going at it pretty hard in a way that I haven't probably in like a year or 2 years, in terms of just how busy I like to be, and that I'm keeping myself, just getting things done. But anyways, so just taking the time just to relax will be super nice. And then looking into 2021, I'm just excited to move forward with a lot of projects. This year was big for a lot of reasons. Whether graduating, getting my chiropractic degree, and then I'll be finishing my master's in functional medicine in 2021. But seeing patients now, actually my own patients, and not just from a newer doctor or a student perspective, is just super fun. Like I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to just building practice, and getting to meet people and see people, and help people. And I'm excited to continue to do that in 2021. And yeah, the fun things that we have planned for the podcast, and continue to meet people, and expand these connections. Because in this podcast, even that we record, bi-weekly, and kind of post this bi-weekly to all the listeners, I think I can speak for both, Dr. Grady and myself, when we say we love what we do in helping people, but loving diabetes is by far, has a special places in our hearts. And I always say that, my health and chiropractic and all these other things is a purpose of mine. A passion of mine rather, but diabetes is my purpose. And so I just love getting the chance to do this and connect with the people that we've connected with and reached out and gone back and forth, and whether it be DMs or emails or whatever have you. And just excited to move forward in 2021, and not feel like, even though it's been such a hard year for so many of us for so many reasons, but looking forward to a year not as a reset, which I think so many people are like, is this year all done yet already? Like, issues aren't going to go away just because the year's turning over. Like,
Yep.
The fact that I'm still a workaholic, even though I'm not in school, or, is still, that's, your issues don't go away just because you move or time moves forward,
Yep.
So anyways, I say that, meaning looking forward to 2021, not as a way of just ending a bad chapter, but as a way as embracing a future. And I think it'll be really, really cool and exciting, and uncomfortable. You know, a lot of I think all of us have had. I'm cutting off a soapbox. I'm sorry. I hope it comes out just like that in the actual podcast of me catching myself. But I'm excited for the holidays. I'm excited for family. Excited for moving forward and loving life. So
awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. We hope your holidays, whatever you might celebrate, wherever you might be in the world, are well, and you are nice and not cold or not warm, wherever you might be, whatever you might be doing. And we appreciate the time as always. So we'll catch you on the next episode of the Die Buddies podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found value in today's conversation, we would appreciate it if you gave a 5-star review. It really helps us branch out our community and get our message across to those who really need to hear it. If you want to interact with us on social media, you can follow us on the Die Buddies podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Or if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or moral outrages, you can email us at thediebuddyspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.